So Alan, over to you. And this will be, once it's recorded, we will put it all up on our YouTube channel.
Thank you all. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this event. It is really, really important that the world remembers the testing program and its effects on the world, which still affect us today. So, as Lynn said, the testing has been carried out worldwide, and approximately 2,056 nuclear tests have been conducted by at least 8 nations. And the USA conducting 1,032, if you include Hiroshima and Nagasaki, followed by the Soviet Union and France. Then the UK, as Lynn said, have tested 45 atmospheric weapons, but they carried out many, many more experiments, including the minor trials and underground testing in the Nevada desert. As a country and as a testing country, we have caused devastation to the planet alongside all of the other testing countries. We've contaminated sacred lands of the indigenous people. We've affected those who participated, including the servicemen, the scientists, the civilian contractors. And we must never forget the downwinders of the testing programs that have also been effective with the radioactive fallout. But unfortunately, the effects did not stop with the testing program, and the effects are continuing to this day, with descendants like myself suffering illnesses and deformities. The largest bomb was obviously the Tsar bomber, which was 50 megatons. And I know you're going to hear more about that later. But you compare the sizes of these explosions to the Hiroshima explosion, which was 15 kilotons, which is 15,000 tons of TNT. And the Tsar bomber was 50 million tons of TNT. We have tested these weapons and they've got bigger and bigger and bigger. We've tested weapons above ground, underground, in the sea, in space, all to the detriment of the world. And for what? It's just all so that countries can say they have nuclear weapons and threaten to use them in conflict. The world is currently a dangerous place with these weapons, and there's lots of people working together to eliminate these weapons, and we must do that. We must eliminate these weapons so they're never used again. The UK started testing in 1952 and finished in 1991. Now, it's important to remember that this is not ancient history. We tested in Australia, Christmas Island, Malden Islands, and the Nevada desert. We were involved in Operation Dominic, which was a joint US-UK test on Christmas Island where my father participated. And he witnessed 24 detonations in 78 days, which is unbelievable because they needed to get the tests in before the test ban treaty came into force. But we must also remember that the UK sent personnel to the French, Chinese, and Russian tests covertly to collect samples. And the UK is heavily involved in all aspects of nuclear testing, but yet it stands alone as a country when it comes to acknowledging the damage that was caused by their efforts. We must never forget the 600 minor trials that were carried out in Australia. They were the most polluting experiments ever conducted by the UK. And they've left parts of Maralinga contaminated for thousands of years. And those areas are still fenced off today. This year, an expedition to the site of the first 1952 test, Operation Hurricane, and to Operation Mosaic, showed that that site is still radioactive today. The Geiger counters were going crazy at ground zero as it was approached by the people. It scared the people enough for some people to turn round at that point. And you think that that is 73 years later? It is frightening to think that these places are still radioactive and will still be radioactive for thousands of years. Our nuclear test veterans in the UK have fought for many years for truth and justice alongside lots of other countries. They fought alongside the indigenous people like Yanni Lester, Karina Lester, civilians and scientists whose lives were forever changed by their participation at the tests. These men now number a few thousand, but they tell the same story. It doesn't matter which country you talk to them, where they've come from. They tell the same story of feeling the blast. They feel the heat. They see the bones in their hands like an x-ray because the light is so bright, even though they've got their balls of their hands covering their eyes and their eyes shut. And these men and their families, like me, are still waiting for the UK government to admit what they did to them. There have been attempted cleanups. And when I say attempted, it is attempted because you cannot clean up the area. All you do is move it from place to place. The cleanups just involve burying the radioactive material. That's all they do, is bury it. And if you look at the burial pits in Maralinga, for instance, they're huge. They're not small. They are big burial pits with plutonium with a half-life of 24,000 years. So they're going to remain in place for thousands and thousands of years. And we did this. We did it to the planet. The Montebello Islands are still radioactive. The sign is still there telling you to not spend longer than an hour in that area and not to pick anything up. Yet the denial continues. We've had lots of books that have been published, including the UK's nuclear scandal by Dennis Hayden, who was a nuclear veteran who was there. And it's important that these stories are always remembered, the people that experience this. And that's why the film that you're going to see today is so important. It's people that have experienced the lived experience of exactly what happened. We continue as an organisation to support our veterans. Our community is very active in the veteran community, and we recently held our annual reunion at Pontins Sandbay in Weston-super-Mare in the UK. With over 133 veterans and their families attending, the week-long event is an incredible time for our veterans. They get together and they provide peer support for the families. And as you can see from this slide, we have a Hawaiian theme night where dancers from Kiribati perform ceremonial dances for the audience. And it's this community, it's so important. These are unique individuals and we must support them. Most recently, we've appeared on BBC Newsnight and BBC Breakfast, trying to get the UK government to admit what they did to these men and what they did during the testing programme. What they did to the lands and the indigenous people. Veterans asked Keir Starmer to meet with them and end this 73-year scandal. And Dennis Hayden, who wrote the book, was amongst them. He told me that he'd waited 50 years to have his voice heard. 50 years. And you can watch him on our YouTube channel, watch him on the iPlayer. But he said to me, if I say something, it's going to be cut. And I said to him, Dennis, they can't cut it. It's live. This is your chance. And if you listen to it, he took his chance and took his opportunity. And it's these opportunities for these men and these people who are affected to tell their stories, like tonight, which is so important. So important. We recently attended the Labour Party conference and we held a fringe event with Andy Burnham, who's the Manchester mayor, and he called upon all MPs to support our call to action. Some of you will be aware that Hillsborough law is going to be put into place, which provides a duty of candour to be placed on the officials, and where we will be given a level playing field in legal challenges, where these officials can no longer lie and can no longer cover up. And it was an incredible event. And again, you can listen to it on our YouTube channel. But it's people like Andy who stand up, people like Susie Boniface, the journalist, who stand up against the establishment, and people that are here today that know these nuclear weapons are wrong. The testing program was wrong. What we did to these men, to the lands, to the people, to the ecosystem was wrong. Yet the people in power seem to think that we are going to go away, but we're not. But we must remember those who have not made it this far, those that have fallen, and those whose lives were taken from them too early because of their participation at the tests. The families who were ever affected, the children that never made it. We do this through Navad Day, which this year was held on the 1st of October 2025, at the National Memorial Arboretum. And we laid wreaths at the National Museum, the National Memorial, and remembered all those who have campaigned for the truth. We remembered all of those men, the indigenous people, and everybody affected by the tests. Lots of work has been undertaken, but I wanted to mention the Oral History Project, which was a project that I was proud to be a part of. It was unveiled on the 12th of September. This project has been running for many years and has captured 50 veteran stories, which will be stored at the British Library for anyone to listen. These stories are so important. They're important for future generations, and they're essential for our history, our campaigning, and our community. But it means that they will never be forgotten because it will be held in perpetuity. Unfortunately, 3 of those people have already died. They gave their voices, but they will be forever heard. And the team, led by Dr. Jonathan Hogg and Dr. Chris Hill, provided an oral history masterpiece. And if you listen to it, it is a masterpiece. It's an incredible piece of work. And you can find out more on the British Library website. But it's through education and through events like this that we make sure that they're not forgotten. Our new educational package, which is a new book, an online course and video, has been released, and we're holding 2 launch events, one in Cardiff and one in Manchester. And it's an essential resource for anyone to understand the testing program, to ensure that these tests and the participants are never forgotten. It was constructed with a lot of work over many years because one wife came to me and she said, I don't want to be a widow without my husband's story being told and without them not being forgotten. And that's what we're trying to do through the education, is to make sure that their voices are always heard. It is difficult. You are fighting an establishment. So we are admitting that we are still here. We are not going away. The descendants are following the veterans. The veteran numbers may be going down, but the descendants who are here today, the numbers are going up. And at Labrats, we continue to apply pressure to the UK government with the help of lots of people, CND included. We want the elimination of nuclear weapons. We don't want anybody to ever see what our veterans saw. Nobody should see what they saw. Nobody should feel what they felt. Nobody should get exposed like they did. So we have various things going on. We have a misconduct in public office charge at Thames Valley Police, a criminal investigation ongoing. We have a missing medical records going on at the MOD, which we hope will have a report by the end of the year. We are extending the medal criteria for the nuclear test veterans, and we hope to have that by remembrance for the people that flew through the foreign tests because they've been excluded. I recently this year did a speech at the United Nations at the 3rd meeting of state parties of the TPNW, which was a powerful speech, but was a necessary speech. We're hoping for our meeting with Keir Starmer by the end of the year, and a new documentary is going to be coming out in 2026 called Our Planet, the People, My Blood. They've followed me around for the last couple of years, and it will show the fight that we have on our hands. We have a civil lawsuit by McCure Jury and Partners, and Steve Pearce, who is on this call with us now, meets with me for regular Office of Veterans Affairs meetings. So it's busy, but we are closer than we've ever been before. The tide is turning. The tide is turning on uncovering the truth, making sure that these people are held accountable for these weapons, what they did. So before I hand over, there is a plug from me to say that you can attend the launch of our educational program in Wales on the 22nd of October in the Senate. You can visit our website for details. But I wanted to conclude by saying together, through events such as this, with the international cooperation and incredible films like Jara, and I say that not just because Aigerim is on the call, It is an incredible film, and you will see it. Our voices are amplified together, and the message is stronger across the world. I hope you enjoy Jara. I find it very moving, and this will be the 4th time that I've seen it, and I know I'll be moved again. We showed it at our reunion, and it's extremely powerful, really powerful, and it affected a lot of the women that were there, because they're the voices that are never heard. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm going to hand over now, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Alan. Aigerim, over to you.
Thank you, Alan. It made me a little bit emotional before I start, but I just want to say good evening, everyone. It's my honor to be here today, and as a nuclear justice advocate and as someone who comes from a nuclear frontline community from Kazakhstan, and I would just like to express my gratitude to the Scottish CND for inviting me, for organizing the event, and it's such an honor also to be sharing this platform with Alan. And I completely agree that together with the cooperation that we've been fostering over the last years, I truly believe in the change that we're trying to bring. What I share today will not be just a history, it will be a lived experience, as Alan mentioned before, but also both personal and collective. You will see a lot of the details, the historical details in the film, which will be around 30 minutes. But I will just give a brief overview and then the reason why I decided to create this film. Between 1949 until 1989, the Soviet Union conducted over 400 nuclear weapon tests at the Semipalatinsk test site, located in the northeastern part of Kazakhstan. And the test site was massive, with about 18,000 square kilometers, so roughly the size of the country of Slovenia. The cumulative radiation released from this test has been estimated as equal to the detonation of 2,000 Hiroshima bombs. This happened not in the middle of an empty desert, and my own family lived within the close range to the former test site. The Soviet authorities deliberately chose Kazakhstan for nuclear testing. They claimed the steppe of our country was empty, but it was not. People lived there, families raised their children. Our culture, our traditions, our livelihoods were tied to that land. To call it empty was a colonial lie, one that made it easier to justify sacrificing of our lives to the Soviet empire goals. For 40 years, my people were treated as expendable. Our land, our water, our soil, our bodies were turned into test subject in a vast nuclear experiment. The human consequences are staggering. More than 1.5 million Kazakhs were directly affected, and radiation poisoned our air, our food, and our rivers. Entire communities saw a rise in cancers, birth defects, miscarriages, thyroid disorders, and cardiovascular diseases. And this story is not an abstract to me, it's my family story. One of my grandfather died of lung cancer at just 52 years old in 1963. At that time, he was working on repairing Soviet railways during the very years when atmospheric tests were conducted nearby. Another grandfather died of liver cancer. My grandmother, who lived in a village close to this test site, struggled for years with health problems before passing away at 65 without ever having access to healthcare. On my mother's side, my grandmother went blind in the 1990s, and my own mother inherited a genetic blood disorder, which she passed on to me. And at the age of 3, I nearly died from complications caused by this condition. Even now, I continue to live with it every single day. This is the legacy of nuclear weapons, not just mushroom clouds, not just numbers or statistics, but generations of human suffering, stories of families like mine, where illness and loss became a normal part of our lives. And yet for decades, the truth was hidden. When people began to ask, why are so many of us sick? Why are so many babies born with deformities? They received no answers. The Soviet authorities denied everything in the very beginning. In the very beginning, they also never warned local communities and never evacuated villages. They never provided proper treatment. Instead, they blamed us. They said the illnesses were because of our poor diet, of our traditional lifestyles. Imagine this cruelty of being poisoned and then told that it's your own fault. In 1989, ordinary Kazakh citizens organized one of the largest anti-nuclear movements in the world, the Nevada Semipalatinsk movement. Inspired by the struggles of indigenous Shoshone people in the United States who also suffered from nuclear testing, Kazakh people took to the streets. They demanded an end to the tests. They demanded justice. And against all odds, during Soviet Union, they succeeded. The Semipalatinsk test site was officially closed in 1991, even before Kazakhstan became independent. This is a story of courage, of people power, and of refusing to be silent in the face of injustice. After independence, Kazakhstan became one of the first countries to renounce nuclear weapons and to join international treaties for nuclear disarmament. We helped establish the International Day Against Nuclear Tests. And on the global stage, these are important achievements. But for me, nuclear justice must go deeper than treaties and political statements. I also want to stress that nuclear justice cannot be separated from feminism. Nuclear weapons are a product of militarized masculinity built on domination, aggression, and the glorification of control. And women, especially in frontline communities, have carried the heaviest burdens. In Kazakhstan, women disproportionately suffered breast and thyroid cancers, miscarriages, and infertility. Many women raising children with disabilities face enormous stigma, social exclusion, and lack of support. Their unpaid care work was invisible, and yet the same women became leaders in advocacy. They organized, they spoke out, they fought for recognition and justice. That is why my documentary, Jara, Radioactive Patriarchy, Women of Kazakhstan, focuses on the voices of women and girls. It tells the story of how radiation shaped their lives, but also how they transformed their suffering into strength. I believe feminist perspectives are not just useful, they're essential for building a nuclear-free future. Before creating this film, I learned about the experiences of women Hibakusha from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, how they endured stigma, how they lived in fear and often had to hide their place of birth. Their stories deeply shaped my film's vision, and I'm grateful to have drawn inspiration from their resilience to create a film about the women of my own community. I dedicate my film to my grandmother, who got blind before she could ever see my face. All she saw was a shadow of my silhouette. She used to touch my face to understand how I look and to feel closer to me. I remember that to get her attention, I used to take her cane as a microphone, and I used to sing to her very loud, and I wished she could ever see my face. But I'm happy she heard my voice loud and clear, and I used the same voice to advocate for a world free from nuclear weapons. Jara, from Kazakh language, means a wound. This film is a labor of love and me sharing my vulnerability with the world, and the process of creating this film was intimate. What you will see today, the sound that you will hear, the footage that you will see, every word, every dot, I created myself because I wanted to avoid exploitation of my own community. But I also wanted these women that you will see today in the film to feel safe, to feel seen, and to trust me with their stories. It's a very quiet film where the women will share the powerful stories with a very silent narration. I also wanted to uplift my and their own agency and our stories to be legitimate without us being only victims, but also being agents of change and owners of our own stories. I'm happy to share the film with all of you today, and I hope that you will find it valuable. Thank you so much.
This is only my third time seeing it, and again, I moved too. So yes, thank you. So we're now in a time for discussion. So we have about 30 minutes for people to ask questions of either Alan or Aigerim, or to make their own contributions. And the floor is open. You can put comments and questions in the chat. Maybe that's the best way to start, or it's also possible for us to unmute you. So we've already had a few we've had one comment from Hassan from Bangladesh, saying how informative it is and how he would like people around the world, and especially in my country, Bangladesh, to know this. Russia is building a nuclear power plant in Bangladesh, neighboring India, Pakistan, and China, who already have nuclear weapons. So would anyone like to come in and ask a question or make a comment?
Can I just add before someone?
Yes, of course, please do.
Thank you so much again for screening my film, and thank you for watching. I just wanted to add 2 points. Well, I think I'm sure there is no one from Kazakhstan government joining this call, this event. So one of the first thing that I missed during my remarks in the beginning is that so when Alan also showed Tsar Bomba, that was the test that was conducted by the Soviet Union, that was tested in Novaya Zemlya, so another test site, which is in the north part of Russia. And Nenets, Nenets are indigenous people of that part of the Arctic. And unfortunately, they were also removed from their own land so that Novaya Zemlya will be built. And not a lot of people talk about how this indigenous community of Russia, which is a really big population of Nenets, were impacted as well. I mean, they were removed from their own, displaced from their own land to conduct the testing of Soviet Union. And then another point why I said about the government is that I echo what Hassan said. Currently, Kazakhstan government, last year in October, a year ago, we had a referendum. So people voted for nuclear power plant, and it's been kind of in a phase that they wanted it for the last 30 years of our independence. And of course, Rosatom had all the ambitions to cooperate with our government to also build the power plant. And they were talking about one nuclear power plant, but now the president of Kazakhstan said that there will be probably 3 nuclear power plants. One of them will be operated by Rosatom, and other 2 they are thinking of either France or China. And in addition to already testing, so China tested their weapons in Xinjiang, which is known for many people as Xinjiang, but it's the original name is East Turkestan, where Uyghurs and Kazakhs and Kyrgyz people live there. So Kazakh people are also impacted by Chinese nuclear tests as well. So that's a little bit of an addition before other people ask questions or make their interventions. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a favor? I would like to have that documentary in my hand so that I could show this to my country people. Is it possible for anyone to help me to get that documentary? And yes?
Unfortunately, the film is not public yet because I'm applying for film festivals. So I can't,
Okay.
it's not online yet, but I usually, screenings they happen with my attendance, like this event as well. So if you want to organize an online event, maybe you can also do.
Can I have your email or any contact so that I can contact with you if I can arrange an event where we can show that?
Yeah, I'll put it in the in the chat.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I mean, we want, Hassan, thank you, but it is important that Aigerim uses the film in the way that she wants to use it, rather than us
Of course.
appropriating it. Yep. Okay, so anyone else want to come in?
We've got one question posted. We've got a couple of
Thanks,
questions and
Samuel.
comments posted in the chat. So one from Keith Parkin directed to Alan. Keith says, Alan, thank you and Labrats for your work on chasing justice for nuclear test veterans. I'm the son of a nuclear test veteran who passed at age 55 in 1988. My father was on the trials team for Grapple across the world. I and my twin brother were premature and christened at birth and not expected to survive the night. Both of us sons have had cancer visit our door, attributable to Dad's irradiation. Given the lack of acceptance of the government, should we return the recent nuclear test veteran medals to the King as a message? That's a question directed for you, Alan.
Yeah, I can answer that one. Keith, in our community, obviously your story is one of thousands, and your family struggles are some that I hear every day. The reason we went for the medal was to force the government into some form of recognition for what they did, because there was nothing, absolutely nothing, and that's why we went for the medal. And people are wearing the medals to show that they were a nuclear test veteran and that these nuclear tests exist. So we've had a medal returned by a family who the veteran passed away, but this was your father's service. He served his country, and we're using the medal as a form of recognition to pound the government. And every time on the TV, every time they see them wearing this medal, it reminds them that the nuclear test veterans existed and that the families are here and are still here and are still suffering today. So it gives that visual representation and it gives them a voice. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you what to do personally, but for me, I do wear my dad's medal when I go out, when I go to governments. I will wear it and say, yeah, my father was a nuclear test veteran and you exposed him to this. You did this to him. He did his duty, and now it's time that you did yours. We are working really hard with the UK government. The King is a supporter of ours. We know that. He's a supporter of the extension of the medal, and he is very keen to get things sorted. So obviously I wouldn't tell you what to do, but it's entirely up to you. But we're using it to say that these people are here, and I wear it proudly to say that my father was a nuclear test veteran.
Thank you very much for that question, Keith. Do you want to come back at all? I don't know whether it's possible for you to do that, and you may not be able to, but if you do want to, you would be welcome to speak.
Yeah, hi, sorry, I didn't realise I could speak. Okay, yeah. I've obviously, I know what Alan and guys have been doing. I've been doing a lot of stuff another way professionally to try and get this. I think part of the reason for that one tonight was that Starmer was saying that he was going to meet with the veterans, and he's backtracking. We went to meet our MP. Bear in mind that our MP and the constituency we live in is the constituency that used to have AWRE in. So he actually knew nothing about the nuclear test veterans and the connection to AWRE, to Aldermaston. Okay. We presented him with my father's medal, but also my wife's Northern Ireland medal. The test veterans medal can't even be engraved because it's cheap Chinese tap. It just illustrates to us that they're not listening. They have absolutely no respect whatsoever for what the veterans did. It's really a case. Should we make a statement a different way?
So, Keith, speak to me afterwards, or speak to me on. I know you speak on email and stuff, but we are close. I will tell you, we are close, and we are turning the tide. But if it doesn't happen very soon, and we all are talking very soon, we're talking months. If it doesn't happen in months, then yeah, we will have to do something else. We will have to make a stand.
Thanks, Alan. I might see you in on the 22nd in
Okay, fantastic.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Thanks both. Okay, so Claire has written a comment in the chat about how scared she was after Chernobyl when contaminated rain fell on her 4-year-old child in England, and how much worse the whole community affected for generations must have felt in Aigerim's Kazakhstan, part of Kazakhstan, and for the effects to be hushed up. And Aigerim's put her email there in case people do want to get directly in touch.
I had a question, Lynn.
Yeah, sure, Samuel.
For both of our guests tonight, whilst the remainder of our guests may be thinking of their own questions, but just following on from Keith's comments about recognition. I mean, it seems to me as though the path for justice involves various things. One of them is recognition. Another, of course, is restitution, concrete restitution measures. Certain countries in the world have official programs to compensate nuclear victims. We do not, from what I understand, have a high profile in the UK restitution program for nuclear veterans and other people that suffered as a consequence of the tests. But what I wanted to ask was, we understand that even in those countries that do have official such programs, there are huge problems in terms of publicizing them, and huge problems in terms of the right people getting access to those. So I wanted to ask firstly, Aigerim, what are those problems? Your documentary touched on it a little bit, but how are those problems manifest in Kazakhstan? And for Alan, what can we learn in the UK from how to organize and set up an adequate, just restitution program? What can we learn from those other countries in the world, such as Kazakhstan, such as France, about what the best way to do that is? And Aigerim, it would be great to hear your thoughts on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'll go first. I think that here it's a bit difficult in a way. So we got our independence in 1991, and the test site was closed. And then we already, as a new government with almost no economy at the time, the Kazakhstan government introduced and passed the law on the social protection of citizens affected by the nuclear tests. And it's in comparison with a lot of countries in general, it's very comprehensive law, I can say. It creates a very good support a mechanism for affected communities, but it's first of all outdated at this point, and then it also leaves a lot of people out of the law. So, for example, the generations who were born after 1989, so including me, we are not considered officially as victims. I don't like the word, but as victims of nuclear testing. So we do not receive any benefits. But also another problem, if you lived during the 40 years, but if you moved afterwards somewhere to the other region of the country, and many people moved to the capital and etc., you lose the benefits at all. And then if you're unemployed or self-employed, like individual entrepreneurs, they also don't receive any benefits. And benefits include compensation around like £10 a month if they're officially employed, if they are considered as victims. And then they receive around 12 days of ecological vacation, that's how it's called. And then sometimes some of the, like, I don't know, free visit somewhere to the museum, something like this. But it's quite, I think that one of the main for us, it's not even about getting, and they get, some people got the one-time cash compensation in the 90s. But for a lot of people, it's not even about the money themselves, because it's quite hard, right, to measure the suffering in that way, which is also good to get the compensation. The problem for us is that the healthcare system is really bad. And I know that NHS is not really good, but for us, it's also about even access to medical equipment that will be okay and not dangerous for us to use. I was in the hospital last year, and I was very shocked in how outdated and almost like Soviet type equipment for MRIs and CT scans there, and people are just afraid, and people don't have access because some of them live in villages and etc. But our government built their whole entire foreign policy on disarmament, but they failed completely to create any sort of proper medical care for our people. But coming to maybe connection with the work that Alan does on nuclear test veterans, when I did the video introduction to the reunion that they had, I also mentioned our veterans. So we have those who were in the military service during Soviet Union, so during active phase of testing, but we have a lot of those who in the 90s, when we got our independence, all those military personnel that were responsible for the cleanup, and they didn't have absolutely any protection, any protective gear, so they were cleaning up with their bare hands. And the problem is that they are not at all recognized in this law that I mentioned, at all. And out of, I don't remember how many of them, but so many of them passed away, and they're in their like around 50s, like late 50s now. A lot of them have a lot of health conditions, but this is the real court case that they can actually bring against the Kazakhstan government as a new independent state, because it's very difficult to kind of talk about reparations from Russia because it's a complex issue due to the Soviet Union system. So I think that here, when I see the work that Alan is doing and a lot of other people considering with veterans, I think that here I see really big opportunity for collaboration between our veterans and also the work that Alan and others doing. So yeah, it's a bit hectic answer, but I just wanted to connect it all. But I think that one of the key points is that the laws, they do not include everyone, and they have to be very comprehensive and holistic, including everyone, but not only concentrating on money as well.
Yeah, I agree there. It's in the UK, basically, if you're a nuclear test veteran, you're talking about a war pension. And we know that only about 4% of those war pension claims for nuclear test veterans are ever paid out. That's the rate. It is so low. There is no compensation program unless you were part of Operation Dominic, because then the Americans will pay you if you meet one of their criteria. So if you were there in 1962 and you were a UK serviceman part of Operation Dominic, and you have one of the cancers that's on the RICA list, they will pay you $100,000 now because it's just been reinstated. But if you were there 4 years before, same island, you get nothing from the UK government, absolutely nothing. And it's really difficult to understand what that looks like in terms of compensation or in terms of recompense. And we're doing a lot of work with the TPNW and working on Article 6 and 7, which is the Victim Assistance Fund. And even that has become very complicated as to what is a victim, what is assistance, and who should pay into that fund to give the monies to the people. And we're very keen that the civil societies that work with the actual people should get that money, where it will make a difference. The programs to actually help people. And in the UK, what we're asking Starmer for, and we're asking the UK government for, number one is the apology. We want the apology. We want what you did to them was wrong, and what you've done for the last 73 years is wrong. You've covered it up. You've hidden evidence. And Keith put in there that they didn't provide the records. They redact records. We have information now that we never had 5 years ago from declassified documents documents that have been given to us that prove the fact that they covered it up. Now is the time to admit it, to put together a compensation program, but it needs to be put together, as has been said, with us in mind, with the views of the people, like with from Keith and the nuclear test veterans and the people that have been affected, the indigenous people, the Australians. It needs the Commonwealth people. It needs to be put together as a complete package. And we also want memorialization. We want these people to be remembered. When I was in the MOD a couple of weeks ago, one of the big things that came up and was pushed by Sir John Hayes was we want a nuclear test veterans memorial, and we want it outside the MOD. We want those civil servants to walk past and go, I want to see that they saw this every day, because what they did to these people was wrong. Not just the veterans, everybody that was involved, the civilians, the scientists, everything. So it forms a package, but the UK has nothing. They will say you can get a no-fault war pension, but you're asking an 87-year-old man to fight for 7 years on average to get a war pension, for it to be denied, for you to go back again, then to go to appeal. And the system is against them, because they will say, well, what's your radiation dose? And you go, well, I haven't got a radiation dose. And they go, well, you weren't irradiated then. Yeah, but you've got the radiation dose. No, sorry, we can't find that record. We have no record of your radiation dose. So therefore, you weren't irradiated. No matter what you tell them, no matter what you go to them with, they always have an answer for it. And the system is stacked against the veterans, is stacked against us. And as somebody's put in there, that the MOD are pathological, to admit responsibility shows weakness. But we are chinking away at that. And we're trying to get it so that it encompasses everybody. But it is complicated. It's very complicated. And to get an establishment in Whitehall, like the Ministry of Defence, to get Keir Starmer to stand in Parliament and say, actually, now I know, I've been given the evidence, which we have, what we did was wrong, takes a man with a, well, yeah, he's got to be strong. Is he the strong man to do it? I don't know, but it takes a strong man, but we're going to keep pushing until we get there. But that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take in order to get it. But we're listening with all of the other organizations that are involved in ICANN and CND and all these other people that we've now got these collaborations with to go, what does it look like? It's not just about giving somebody 50 grand. It needs a lot more. It needs a lot more. And it needs the apology. I've got nuclear test veterans on here. Dennis is sitting looking at me right now. And I can say, if I could take him to Parliament, along with other test veterans and descendants, and hear an apology from the UK government in Parliament and say they're going to set up a compensation program with us, that would go a long way to ending it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, as well as the comment about the pathological admitting weakness, I mean, it's also admitting the terrible ongoing harm of the whole nuclear weapons program, which of course continues the harm. And I mean, as they're planning to develop new nuclear weapons, I mean, they have to perpetuate the harm. Even if they're not conducting new tests, they will be doing new uranium mining, they will be generating new nuclear waste. They will be part of still continuing the ongoing harm, apart from the insanity of the weapons themselves. So I think it's also, that also makes it difficult for them to admit.
Can I just go in there, Lynn? Also, just Steve has just reminded me of something. Some of you may not know, but we are fighting for medical records for our fathers. Steve Peirce and I have spent the last 3, 4, 5 years asking the Ministry of Defence for my father's medical records. And some of you may know that in 2022, I suffered a cardiac arrest and was diagnosed with a genetic disease. I was gone for 8 minutes, effectively dead. I wrote to the MOD after the incident when I was well enough and said, look, I need some evidence from my father's medical records. I have a genetic condition that I may have passed to my son. I need access to his medical records, his blood tests and his information. And they wrote back and said that I didn't meet the criteria. They've written to Steve and said they have his father's medical records. It's written on MOD headed paper, but we are withholding them from you. And we had a meeting with the OVA this week, and we are still fighting for those medical records. It is a fight, unfortunately, because once they admit, as Lynn said, the ongoing harm that is still being done to us today, and to Steve there, you can see his little boy there, Sasha, he has a genetic condition as well. It's being passed on to generations, and they don't want to admit it. And one of our areas that we're asking for is an investigation and research into the descendants, because it's never been done in the UK.
Ken, just come in quickly, please, Ken. Do you want to speak? You can unmute yourself.
It's just to remind people of the program that was broadcast last night on BBC Two. Yeah. So I don't know if it's accessible to anybody who's not in the UK, but it was a 75-minute program about the effects of nuclear testing, and it was shown last night. So I'd just like to remind people about that if they didn't see it yesterday. I hope they can get it on iPlayer. Okay.
Thank you very much, Ken. That was very appropriate.
Thank you, Ken.
And Samuel, do you want to come in to just let people know about upcoming event? And then we'll just see if Aigerim and Alan want to make any final remarks.
Yes, yes, thanks so much. So, I mean, one theme that's been touched on and that the presentations from our guests have highlighted tonight, excellent presentations from our guests, is that, you know, when we talk about nuclear weapons, we talk about the damage that they do. Very often, we can focus on the very real prospective threat of nuclear war, which is a very real threat, and it is one of the gravest threats, you know, to humanity. But it's also, I think, when we're having conversations about nuclear weapons, it's easy to neglect the fact that there is this ongoing harm that has been perpetuated since their invention in 1945, and that harm is being felt still today. So it's harm that we, you know, many people have to live with, and it's that these weapons create risks on a day-to-day basis. You know, just recently in Scotland, there have been reports about radioactive leakages from the bases on the West Coast, which are extremely concerning. And again, the MOD is refusing calls to conduct public investigations. These bases are only an hour from Scotland's most populous city. So these are the some of the real risks on a day-to-day basis that we're enduring, that many people are enduring. So that is going to be part of the argument at a conference, Scottish CND conference that we're running on Saturday, 1st of November in Glasgow. It's going to be an all-day conference, and we're drawing from civil society, from politics, from campaigning, to get leaders in all these sectors together to discuss the threats that nuclear weapons pose to Scotland. I'm going to post the link to that event, the registration link to that event, in the chat here. I obviously recognize many of you will be tuning in from places very far from Scotland, but for those that are relatively nearby, we welcome you to come and join us. And I'll just post that link in there now. The event is called Stop the Nuclear Nightmare. And finally, I just want to extend my deep thanks to both of our guests tonight for their great presentations, and to Aigerim for letting us watch your incredible film. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Samuel. And Susan, I'm sorry I haven't acknowledged your sort of moving comment in the chat, but it's there. So thank you for that and for sharing that. Aigerim and Alan, do you want to just make any closing remarks? No. Aigerim?
Yeah, I'll just say a few words. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's such an honor also to be able to present my film again among allies and people like yourselves. And I want to echo what Samuel just said. I think that for all of us, the work that we do for affected communities and frontline communities, nuclear justice comes first, because we do believe that abolishing nuclear weapons would not happen for us without recognizing the harm that was done and caused by the entire creation and existence of nuclear weapons in general. And the work that we do, Alan mentioned, on Article 6 and 7 of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, it's very vital and important in this pathway. But also, I think that connecting everything that happened with the nuclear weapons as a product of colonialism, of racism, of patriarchy, of militarism, I think that if we connect all of it with what is happening as existential threats right now and climate change, we would be able to achieve great results. And it's very easy to feel pessimistic and to be, to want to give up. I think that for me, a lot of the times, but events like this, people like you, and collaboration with so many of you has been quite a good motivation to keep going. So I just want to express my gratitude. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you. Thank you.
And
thank you.
I would just like to say that there are so many amazing people out there doing amazing work. Lots of people are on this call right now.
Thank you.
And if I can say anything to you, is to keep going. It can be hard, really hard. And there are days when you get pushbacks and you get issues and you get problems. But together, with events like this that have been fantastically arranged and the powerful videos that are being produced now, the world can no longer close their eyes to what happened. And the MOD, especially in the UK, can no longer hide and can no longer hide away. And we're all doing a fantastic job. So thank you very much for inviting us on. But please keep going and keep doing what you're doing.
We will never give up. We won't. We will never give up. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for being with us. Thank you.